RFK Jr. was recently named the new head of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Now, how does this impact veganism? Well, we're about to find out.
What if I told you these ridiculous ads
Did you say I'll feel better smoking Philip Morris?
Yes, you'll feel better.
are not all that different from these ads?
Now, every box of Kellogg's Rice Krispies cereal has antioxidants and nutrients that help support your child's immune system.
What's up, guys? It's Mike from Annoying Vegans. So I'm going to share some facts that both support and challenge some of RFK Jr.'s stances. Then I'm going to share some opinions of some notable vegan influencers, one of which is hesitant about RFK being in the cabinet, and one who is hopeful of him being there. And then I'm going to just give y'all my opinion on it. If you're looking for somebody to condemn or bash a particular person, this is not the video for you. I'm just going to be talking about policies. If you are happy with the election results, you're welcome on this channel. And if you are unhappy with the election results, you're welcome on this channel. Without further ado, let's get into it.
And what do you think is driving the obesity epidemic?
It's being driven by poison food, by ultra-processed wheat, sugar, and flour, seed oils, soy, canola, sunflower, and then, wheat and corn, which are all heavily subsidized. Glyphosate is also used as a desiccant, which means it dries out wheat, so it's sprayed on the wheat right at harvest, which means it's going right into the food. And when that began in 1993, that's when you saw all the appearance of all these gluten allergies and celiac disease and wheat allergies that you don't have in Europe. You can eat spaghetti here and you're going to get eczema and all of these stomach complaints. Then you go to Italy and you eat it and you get thin.
I think it's pretty obvious that the reason that we're all obese in this country, I don't want to say all, I think it's pretty obvious that the reason that the majority of Americans are obese is because of the ingredients that are in our food and the types of foods that we're eating. The ones that are most accessible are the ones that are the worst for us. And that's not on accident. McDonald's, for example, is one of the cheaper, most accessible options. It's no mystery. Will RFK being in office convince the rest of the members in the cabinet to get on board with that message? Well, this photo of RFK sitting with 3 other members of the cabinet with McDonald's in hand is probably a not so pleasant indicator of that. Now, as you can see in RFK's expression, the soul is kind of leaving his body as he's staring at the camera. And I think we've all been in that position before where like maybe you're the only vegan or maybe you're the only healthy person in a group and you're kind of just trying to not draw too much attention to yourself. I know we've discussed that on this channel before, how we don't want to draw too much attention to ourselves as vegans in public and being that annoying person. It's the norm to kind of chow down on some junk food, unfortunately. Hoping that it doesn't mean that RFK will be steamrolled over, but the optics are very awkward. How can you be the spokesperson for health and you're chowing down on some McDonald's? I mean, I did read that they were joking about the fact that he was there and he didn't eat all of it, but he did have some. And they said, Maha, Make America Healthy Again, starts Monday, is what they said. We'll see. I got my eyes wide open on that one.
I have both the Fruit Loops right here. Let me just show you. So this is the United States. Actually, this is the United States version, and this is the Canadian version. So let me just show you the differences in these. So this is the Canadian color right here. This is the US color right here. You can see the subtle differences in color and how much brighter the US version is. Well,
looks neon.
Yes, it is. And in focus groups, guess which product children ate more of? This one. And so not only are they using it for a marketing tool, they're contributing to obesity. This is sugar-laden cereal. This isn't the healthiest thing on the market.
Sure, you've probably seen this Fruit Loop video and how Canadian Fruit Loops and American Fruit Loops are significantly different in their color. The Canadian ones are very light and kind of dim and kind of not very shiny. And the American ones are quite colorful and quite different in their color, very bright. Why is that? Well, they have argued that there's more ingredients in the American ones, and not only are there more ingredients, but these are ingredients that are banned in other countries. Also, the Mexican Fruit Loops are considered to be more like the Canadian ones. So that's one factor. There was actually an article that came out that argued against the fact that RFK I think said that there's more ingredients in the American one. Well, actually there's more ingredients in the Canadian one. According to this article, there's 17 ingredients in the Canadian one and 16 in the American one. However, what's important is what those ingredients are. In the American one, you have red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, you got blue 1. All of these are banned in Canada. The Canadian authorities limit the use of those ingredients, and it's said that the Canadian ones use more natural forms for coloring, and that's probably why the color is so dull. And they say, which one would your kids prefer? And a lot of people, like you saw in the video, the kids prefer the brighter ones. I mean, I think the kids just prefer the brighter ones because the brighter ones are there. If you gave a kid the darker ones and they didn't even know that the brighter ones existed, I'm sure that they would still eat it. And you got to start them young. You got to form that palate young. So you got to develop that taste bud young. And if they're only used to the healthier one at a young age, then they're going to be just fine throughout their progression through life. Okay, that's kind of my 2 cents. Moving on, I now want to talk about the 2 vegan influencers I was mentioning, one of which who is hesitant, another of which who is hopeful. But before I move on too much further, I just want to say, I'd like to say, if you are getting any value from this video, please give us a thumbs up. Please also subscribe to our channel. We would very much appreciate that. Moving on. LiftingVeganLogic had posted this post, and I'm going to read it out loud. It says, I don't usually dive too deep into politics here, but with the election results as they are, I do feel compelled to say that it looks like the vegan movement will need to work even harder in the coming years. I know there are vegans who lean right, but it's undeniable that veganism is often seen as a progressive idea, challenging the status quo, and that doesn't sit well with many conservatives. The rise in content that is anti-vegan, anti-vegan meat, anti-cultivated meat, pro let's get back to our roots, all processed food is bad, and veganism equals the androgenization of man, which I've been busy dismantling all year, seems to mostly come from this camp. And yes, I acknowledge that non-vegan left can also be irritating in their own way when it comes to veganism. With this and the election results in mind, we need to be ready to go harder than even before, and I'm prepared to do exactly that. So basically, he calls for us to fight the big fight and fight it even more so now. I messaged LiftingVeganLogic as a response to this post, and I said, there's members that are prospective cabinets members, like Tulsi Gabbard, and who's vegan, as I understand, and then Vivek Ramaswamy and JD Vance, I believe, are vegetarian. And of course, with RFK and his whole health movement, there is what appears to be a glimmer of hope in the sense of the vegan agenda making its way into that administration. And he responded back and asked, is there any evidence of RFK Jr. Championing veganism? He was just genuinely curious, and I was looking for some, and I couldn't find any. So that leads me to believe that evidence doesn't exist, and that RFK Jr. is not like pro-vegan per se. So I think in that alone, it is definitely a line that is being towed, and it's difficult to understand which direction it's going to go in. And I think there is going to be some conflict from both sides of vegan versus anti-vegan. So I think it's perfectly acceptable to be cautious in this case. And then he shared a few days later, maybe a week or so later, when RFK Jr. was named to his position, that he shared, and this was in a story that has now expired, and I don't have the screenshot, unfortunately, but he shared 2 images of RFK in some interview where he basically condemned, or I don't want to say demonized, but attacked Impossible and Beyond Meat, saying that we need to get towards a society where animal meat is the primary relied upon source, and that we don't have this lab-grown stuff with a ton of ingredients. And my take on this is that meat is still worse than lab-grown fake meat. There have been many studies, and this is in Dr. Michael Greger's book, that state that chicken is full of salt. They constantly put salt on chicken so that it weighs more, and so that it then costs more. You have estrogen being injected into our meats, and a lot of our livestock, all of the livestock, are eating a significant amount of soy. So I've said it before, meat eaters are eating a lot of soy by virtue of eating the livestock that has a lot of soy. So don't let anybody tell you that vegans are the #1 consumers of soy, because we all are. But that all being said, I do feel like the lab-grown stuff is still better than actual meat. Even though animals is 1 ingredient and the lab-grown meat is 25 ingredients maybe, that 1 ingredient has gone through a lot of stuff in its life. And those are the stuff that it has gone through, those are ingredients. I then saw this post by PlantBasedBen, which said, and I'll read it here, if RFK successfully accomplished just one of the following: vaxxed versus unvaxxed study, ban fluoridated water, or fluoridated water, I should say, ban farmer TV ads, expose chemtrails in 5G, remove toxins from food, expose agency corruption, and restore integrity in science, that would make more of an impact than anyone else in public office has ever made towards the health of our country. So I saw that, and then I sent him the story from Lifting Vegan Logic. I said to him, what do you think about this? I gather that RFK is pro whole foods, plant-based. I worry he will get pushback on the vegan thing though, and will be forced into championing meat. And then Ben responded to me and he said he champions whole foods, not veganism. I agree with him that processed chemical vegan or non-vegan food should be eliminated from our diets. A lot of vegans do fall back on the processed foods, and I think that's hurting the movement personally, as there's lots of good options from Mother Nature. So yes, it's always better to be whole food, plant-based, and not rely on fake meats. And I do try to do that the majority of the time that I consume food. However, we live such busy lives, especially if you live in a city, especially if you work a 9 to 5, especially if you're just running from meeting to meeting, from appointment to appointment, from engagement to engagement, day in and day out. It's hard to be 100% fully whole foods. So I do find myself relying on the fake stuff every now and then. I don't think that we should rely on it 100% whatsoever. And I know a lot of people don't like to cook. I know a lot of people are kind of dabbling into it, and that's their choice, and that's fine. Think you all saw, or might have seen, I'm not gonna say you all saw, but you might have seen in some of our stories that I finally tried the Huel hot and ready meals. And even that seems like it's super, nutritious. It's, quinoa, it's a lot of whole grains. Depending on how you make it, you might need to use the microwave, or you might put it over a stove. But if you use the microwave, that's not good for you. And there's nothing that's fresh in there. So even with something like that seems, pretty healthy, pretty nutritious, it is lacking in the fresh produce. There's no fresh fruits and vegetables. And I feel like there always should be a balance. And I always try to get my greens in, even, if I don't have time to cook, I try to just grab some spinach. Just grab some raw spinach, guys. It's pretty easy to eat. So yeah, I think we live busy lives. It's hard to be 100% whole foods 100% of the time. But I think to say that, to deny the fact that whole foods are better than fake meats would be delusion, in my opinion. It's obvious. That stuff was made for us. Our bodies are made to eat fruits and vegetables and stuff, legumes, beans, things that come from Mother Nature. Like they exist in nature for our bodies. I just kind of want to also respond to a few of the things on his list. I'm not really an expert on all of these things, particularly not the 5G, particularly not the agency corruption piece, but in terms of the vax versus anti-vax one, let's go back to 2020. The virus actually existed in 2003, and it came from a pangolin, and it was sold in a wet market, and then it introduced the virus to humans. Fast forward to 2019, same thing occurred with the bat. If you're a vegan for the animals, that should bother you. And during that time, I remember saying, yes, like the distancing and the masks and even the development towards a vaccine are important for solutioning, fixing the problem. But why is nobody actually talking about the cause and how to prevent the cause in the future? Like nobody was allowed to even talk about that, it seemed, and nobody was focusing on that. And then you had people, when the vaccine came out, like you had a government official saying, go get a vaccine and we'll give you a free beer or a free pizza. I'm like, are you kidding me? What about, eat more tofu, eat more fruits, more vegetables, more juice, arm yourself so that your body can better withstand these symptoms, instead of just like, nope, there was no discussion about that. It was just like, get the vaccine and have a pizza. So that kind of leads into the big pharma thing here, where they sell you the problem so that they can sell you the solution. And I've said in another, like 2 episodes at this point, I think, there's no commercials for sweet potatoes. There's no commercials for apples. There's no commercials for spinach. But there's plenty of commercials for Fruit Loops, plenty of commercials for cereal, and plenty of commercials for medication. So that in itself, if you're a vegan for the health, that should bother you.
Hey, Robert F. Kennedy has been announced head of the Department of Health and Human Services Secretary. I keep seeing all these comments. He has no degree. He has no medical background. He's a quack. That's probably exactly what we need. During the early 1900s, I'm taking you back, scientists were working to understand the basic process of life and human health. It was during that time that most of the vitamins were discovered, like C, B1, B2, vitamin D, and more. Science took a huge step forward, enabling vitamin remedies that were able to cure conditions that were caused by vitamin deficiencies such as scurvy and rickets. Sounds like a good thing, right? 1935, vitamin C, which the human body cannot make, became the first vitamin to be artificially synthesized in Switzerland. Guess who pulls up? John D. Rockefeller saw this as a big opportunity with the possibility that vitamins and medications could be developed from petroleum, which was his line of work. There was a small problem with Rockefeller's plan. What was the problem? Natural and herbal medicines were way more popular in the early 1900s. Almost one half of the medical colleges and doctors in America were practicing holistic medicine using extensive knowledge from Africa and, of course, Native American traditions. Rockefeller knew that he had to get total control of the medical industry. Rockefeller hired a contractor named Abraham Flexner to submit a report to Congress in 1910. This report determined that there were too many doctors and medical schools in America, and that all natural healing modalities which had existed for hundreds and thousands of years were unscientific quackery. The report called for a standardization of medical education whereby only the American Medical Association, AMA, would grant medical school licenses in the United States. Rockefeller's goal was to modernize medical education and to improve the practice of medicine in America. Congress acted on this report and changed laws related to the medical practice. Teachers on diet and other natural treatments were completely removed from medical programs. So what now? Allopathic medicine becomes the standard of treatment in America. With new laws in place, Rockefeller teamed up with the OG Andrew Carnegie and started funding medical schools all over America on the strict condition that they only taught allopathic medicine. Andrew Carnegie was a wealthy industrialist known for making huge investments, but this team systematically dismantled the previous curriculums of medical schools, removing any mention of healing power of herbs or natural treatments. To lock in this monopoly, they launched a smear campaign against natural medicine, discrediting them, demonized them through newspapers and other media outlets. Some doctors were even jailed for using natural medicine treatments that had been used safely and effectively for decades prior. So in a very short time, medical colleges were homogenized. All the students were taught the same allopathic system, and medicine became defined as the process of prescribing patented drugs, a pill for an ill.
So as you saw, you know, the history goes like this. In the 1930s, it used to be about the natural organic sources of medicine and preventative care, and that was the norm, and people didn't really look at medication or drugs. There wasn't enough evidence or research at that point to substantiate that. The methods that Rockefeller had taken had basically shifted the way we look at health to what it is now, where big pharma is considered the norm, and organic, natural methods are considered wacky. And, you know, a lot of people consider RFK Jr. to be wacky because of conspiracy theories. And she's arguing that we need somebody who will kind of like change the status quo and bend the needle, because we've been kind of hitting the same results administration after administration, to the point of there really hasn't been a whole lot of change. So this is something that could produce a lot of change. I hope that we can see some intervention, you know, when it comes to those issues. It's difficult to, you know, I think a lot of people on the conservative side will say, you know, limit government intervention as much as possible. However, I think the reason that they're in support of this in particular is because this is a humongous issue that has been a problem for decades at this point, and we haven't seen traction on. It is a difficult line to walk because the government intervening, it's like, how do you advocate for intervening in some cases and not others? Which cases where they intervene are considered more important than others? It's hard because everybody's gonna have a different opinion on that. They tried to open a garbage transfer in Ossing, New York, in a community that was primarily people of color. And environmental racism is a real thing. And they do this all the time, where they open up factories in communities where it's primarily people of color. People end up having long-term effects from that kind of stuff. He was an environmental lawyer for several years, and he fought with the NAACP to prevent this. You know, if you're vegan for the environment, this should make you happy. He stopped construction of dams in Chile, all sorts of things that would have been a negative impact to their environment. But that can't be said without also mentioning the Samoa issue that you might have heard of, where on June 4th, 2019, RFK was pictured with an Australian Samoan anti-vaccine activist, basically spreading vaccine hesitancy to those residents. And there was a big measles outbreak and it killed 70 people. A lot of people blame him for that. Whether you think it's causation or correlation is, you know, up to your interpretation. The way that we approach messaging about hesitancy, we should also encourage people to just research. And we should encourage nuance. One size does not fit all. And, you know, it is sad that happened. The US in particular, you know, we have no excuse. We have access to research. So what's my opinion? I am intrigued, I am interested to see how this might impact the way we approach food in this country, and that in itself is going to have an impact on the vegan agenda and the vegan movement. So but while I'm hopeful, my guard is up, because you saw that McDonald's photo, okay? And the administration hasn't even started yet. So I don't ever put 100% of my trust into somebody, and none of us should. You should never put 100% of your trust into one person. We should be cautiously feeling the way we're feeling. Whether it's hope or whether it's hesitancy, you shouldn't even feel 100% of either of those emotions. You should be willing to, you know, keep your eyes open for other things that may challenge that particular emotion. So yeah, I am hopeful, but I am very much on guard as well, and I'm just interested to see what ends up happening. Let me know, y'all, if you vibe with this kind of content. I don't think we'll do this that often. It's just, you know, there was an election that just happened, and this is relevant, and this is news that impacts. This is vegan news, essentially. I mean, it's not a vegan news, but it is a vegan news. And you know, let's all. We can do this, guys. We can have discussions with people. We can still feel how we feel, but we can still be open to reaching out to other people regardless to where they stand on a particular issue. Like, let's not even listen to the crap out in the media. Let's not even listen to people who are trying to divide either side. Let's take it upon us to walk in this world together. Vegan, non-vegan, left, right, whatever. Let's have discussions and let's be friends with one another, or at least let's respect one another, okay? Let's, at the very minimum. There's no need to slander. There's no need to use any kind of hurtful language towards somebody based on how they voted or based on how they eat or how they purchase products, okay? You guys might be wondering, where's Alex? Well, Alex is in Austin and Mike is in Dallas, and sometimes we're not able to get together as much as we used to be able to, just because we've been busy and there's been some career shifts and geographical shifts. So we're gonna continue doing this podcast, but it's gonna be a little bit different. I might be on some episodes by myself. He might be on some episodes by himself. We'll still do episodes together. We're still gonna have guests come on, and we're also going to have associates join us in running some of these episodes and some of these interviews and some of these discussions. So also, check out our reels or shorts. Alex just recently reviewed Vegan Friendly, the new vegan app. And check that out on YouTube or Instagram. We're also on Rumble now, so you can see our episodes on Rumble. And check out more of our shorts where we actually did, we reviewed Vegan Vibes in Houston recently. We went down there and we checked out the event. So there'll be lots of topics that we do. Nothing is off the table. And we're just gonna try to cover everything and see what fits best. So if you do like this type of discussion, please give us that feedback so that we can continue to have it. But we'll definitely have less heavier topics, more fun, opinionated topics. It's not always going to be this type of news thing, but I do think it's important to just kind of call out something like this because it's relevant to us. So yeah, please share some feedback on the type of topics you would like us to cover. And as I mentioned before, we would love it if you could give us a like or a dislike. It's just as fine as well. Please subscribe and share, put those notifications on, and tell a friend, okay? And we will see you on the next one.